This is a pretty short talk. Looks like this is an older version of my deck, so hopefully there's not too much left off. I don't have anything down here, but that's okay. I don't need it. This is the agenda. Our mission today is pretty quick. We're going to catch bad guys as fast as we can, and we're going to measure that efficiency in time, and we're going to say wasted time is what we need to stop. Again, it's an old slide deck. Sorry, it's not up to date. I just pulled it offline. But so one of these things up here we have up here is SOC statistics. Just why do we do this? I think we're actually going to need my updated talk thing. Nope, we should be good. So why do we do this? So 50% of SOC analysts think about switching jobs. We have a higher attrition rate in the SOC than everywhere else in the tech industry. So tech industry has about a 17% turnover rate. The SOC has about a 25% turnover rate for 50% of SOCs. That goes up. If you go up to 80%, you're going to lose about 10% of your SOC year over year, which is how it is. Why do they leave? They have burnout, right? We saw a talk from Carson earlier, but they're also, thanks man. They have burnout. They're stressed. They have a lot of extra work on their plate. So on average, most SOC analysts will work an extra day a week if you have a 5x8 schedule. So they're working an extra 1 day a week. So 6 days a week, what's the point? Later in the talk, I'll point to it if we have time. But the idea here is that we're actually going to move to 410s. That's my best recommendation for scheduling. This is me. I've been in security operations work for about 15 years. I'm from the great state of Ohio. OH? Ohio. There it is. Thanks. I appreciate it. But from that being said, I'm coming from Virginia. I've been here I'm currently at Oracle, but I've been here as well at Microsoft. I worked at KeyBank as well before that, Dell SecureWorks, and I was a member of the CPB in the United States Army. So what is a SOC? Now, if you look at ISO, COVID, CSS, CDR, et cetera, they will not define a SOC. In fact, you probably may not have a SOC. You may have a Fusion Center or a CCERT or a CERT, right? Does anyone have any of those things or all those things? Yeah, you probably have different names for it, right? So what is a SOC? Well, I'll tell you now, if you look at those places, they don't define it. They say, what should your organization do as a SOC? And so what we're going to say is, this is what we say a SOC is today. We're going to say a SOC deals with physical and cybersecurity issues by monitoring and improving an organization's security posture, by preventing, detecting, analyzing, and responding to incidents through a combination of technological solutions and processes. Ignore that extra comma, it's a typo on mine. But does this sound right, what a SOC does in general? Like for the most part? I hope so. Because we're going to pretend we're them. We're going to skip over this. So this is what we're going to focus on today, the cost of a detection. And so when we're talking about a SOC, like what's wasted time, okay, we think of it as the false positives and benign positives, right? True positives aren't waste. We like true positives. Everyone loves catching bad guys. But benign positives and false positives we don't like. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So how do we do that? So the easiest way for us to do that is there's the cost of the log, the investigation time, and the false positive rate. But really, it's not the false positive rate. It's the time it takes us to assess an incident and determine what it is. So what is the cost of the log? So if you've been in security for a minute, you probably remember the days where we measured our costs and logs as EPS, right? That was when the cost of the log, like the biggest cost for our SIM was having it on-prem, the hardware itself. That was the big thing. A hard drive cost us $100,000. We don't do that so much anymore. We do service-based. So a lot of times when we're talking about logs and storage, we're going to be focusing on the volume size, gigabytes and dollars. That isn't the only place we get costs, though. We get it from the service in itself. So if you're buying things like CrowdStrike, which does service cost logs, but even if you're using Defender, we price you in at cores, right? That's the cost of your log. So it's not just storage. There's other ways to get your cost. You need to understand how that cost works and looks like. That's just it right there. And there's some values there. So why do you log? So we log because, well, we have compliance reasons. Like they say we should log. We have to log, so we do. And in addition to that, we say, well, we've had past incidents. That's a big deal, right? We've had incidents in the past. There's trends in the industry. That's a big deal too. You know, when we start to see things pop up, like, oh, I don't log that today, but an executive says, start logging it right now. I don't care how much it costs. Figure it out. That happens all the time. And then we start to like, well, what is the cost to us though when we do that? Well, it's dollars. Who here manages their budget or knows what their budget is, right? Manage your budget, know what your budget is. Okay. But when you look at that dollars, you also have to look at it, what can I not get with my dollars now? Typically, I don't have a blank check. It's very rare when someone says, do it, I don't care. Typically, they say, balance my budget. And so whenever I ingest a log, I also have to balance the log cost out as well. So they say, hey, If I want to ingest all these sign-in logs, I can't ingest all these 4086 logs at the same time. I don't have enough bandwidth. And that'll scale based on your organization. Next. There we go. So the next thing we need is we also need to know two other pieces of information in order for this to work. One is we need to know the alert classification, which is true positive, benign positive, and false positive. That's pretty simple. How do you guys do that today? When I do it, I just say, hey, when we have a case management system, in order for you to close it, you must say true positive, false positive, benign positive. It's not an option. Typically, I will fall into some SOCs and I'll say, hey, what's this detection's fidelity? They're like, I have no idea. We just have it. It just triggers. I'll say, okay, but how often is it right? Oh, I don't know. Okay. Does anyone here do a regular, annual, or quarterly assessment of the detections? Custom detections? 1, 2. Supposed to do it. It's actually in this, right? If you are compliant, you must do it. So someone is saying you're doing it in your organization. If you're not, someone's saying you are. Now, sometimes people will pass that buck off to their vendors and say, well, the vendor does it, so I don't need to do it. And that's okay, if that's what you want to say. But in reality, you probably have some custom detections. So when we classify those detections, we say true positive, benign positive, false positive. That's just kind of a breakdown. And then the next thing we're going to look at is our median time to closure. So when you're looking at case metrics, a lot of people will look at these case metrics and say, start time is when I started to, like when I got the event. That's actually not true, okay? So start time for you, for this piece here, remember, we're trying to save time on our analyst. So what is our first timestamp? So the analyst looked at it first. Not when I got the event, it's when my analyst touched it first. That's what we have to measure against. So it's median time to remediate. Now you can look at it from the macro perspective, and you can say, hey, this is what we're saying when a log actually comes in, and the alert fired, and that's the mean time to remediation all the way through the incident. That's totally true. It's not wrong. But when we're measuring case metrics, and in itself, we're measuring SOC analyst performance. We're measuring performance of our organization. So we have to say, when did I first look at get eyes on glass? If you want to shorten that window, flash to bang, make that a metric. And say, hey, I need to speed up the amount of time it takes me to go from when the detection occurs to when my SOC analyst looked at it for the first time. So there's two different metrics here, but we're going to focus on that latter half. And I keep saying this, I can't say it enough. It's median, not mean, right? We learn those things in primary school. Mean, median, mode. It's median in this case. When would you use mean versus median? You guys know?
It doesn't skew.
Does it skew? That's it. Like, so if you're mean, you're looking at like a Bayesian model, then yeah, use mean. Okay, when everything's kind of centered in a tight shot group, use that. All right, when we look at Andrew's talk this morning, precise, accurate, if it's all kind of together, yeah, use mean. It makes a lot of sense. But when we're looking at things with a wide skew in time, so like a long tail analysis, you want to use median instead. If you don't do that, what you'll end up seeing is you'll have one metric, like one case that takes 6 days to work because it's a true positive, right? True positives don't get solved in 5 minutes. They get solved in days, typically. And then we would say a mean with that would bring that far to the right. So a median gives us a better shot group of how long these things take to work by themselves. Bear with me here and deal with the scrolling if you wouldn't mind. This is going to be an eyesore for you, and I apologize. But so has anyone heard of Chesterton's fence? You guys know what I'm talking about? Chesterton's fence? It's this idea that you're walking down a road and you see a fence in the middle of the road. And you say, this is in my way. I want to get around this road. I want to keep going down the road. And you say, well, if I take the fence down, though, what happens? You don't know why the fence is there, okay? But you take the fence down, and now some cattle get mixed in with some other cattle, and you have a whole problem. The idea here is that you don't know why something exists, so you shouldn't take it out of context. So if you don't know why detection's there, do not disable the detection. Okay, we're just going to start with this process of do not touch things that you don't know why they're there until you know why that they're there themselves. So that fence, Chesterton's fence, is the anecdotal example here. That thing is used for, if you can fix it, sir, go for it. I can work. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Went back to your other.
I did. I had to, unfortunately. Yeah. So Chesterton's fence there is the example here of like whenever something's there in the middle of a field there, if you don't know why it's there, don't touch it until you know why it's actually there. This is going to be tough to read like this, but we'll give it our best shot here. Good luck. It's like a Star Wars, if you guys have seen that, right? So a long, long time ago. So what I'll do is I'll click on this here in a second. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming back. No, it's okay. Shame is what we say. No, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some data here in a second. This is just our data catalog, what we have here. What we'd like to do is, this is the dummy data. And so this is just going to be a quick walkthrough of the tech that we could use. So like I said, this should be done as part of your quarterly review of your detections. And so what we're going to do is just a very quick and dirty quarterly review of those detections just in a second. I actually do need to use my laptop for this, so it's a hands-on thing. Okay, no, it's okay. All right, cool. Thanks for bearing with me. So this is a demo spreadsheet of just how this kind of works. Again, bear with me here. It's an older copy of my deck. But essentially what we're going to do here, when you're doing these quarterly reviews, what we need is the detection itself, what the name is. Now, some of you are going to be bringing in sources from like your EDR source. So if you do that, just have some type of annotation, whether that be an ID or you have a name, right, to use. So when you're using those, that gives you something to break off of. And when you bring that into your case management system, that can be your detection. For right here, these are all just dynamic detections. So what we've done here, what we've done here is went ahead and brought this over into, let's see, we've broken down our log costs. So we have the true positive rate, the false positive rate, and the benign positives, and then this breaks down to a true positive rate over here. And that allows us to do some simple math, right? Now, you're going to see this potential negative, and this is where we have a kind of a differing of opinion. So when you say, like, how often, like, what is a potential negative rate going to actually be? It might actually end up being something along the lines of, what is the total cost of a normal breach? So if a breach is going to cost you $4 million a year, isn't every one of these detections potentially $4 million? No, that isn't how it works. You actually string together multiple attacks generally, and that's how you get to your $4 million. But in this case here, how much these are just like pie in the sky numbers. When you're doing your detection engineering, your theory crafting, you're gonna say, how much is one of these things gonna cost me when it doesn't get annotated? We times that by our true positive rate. So if we look back over here in our true positive rate, we say, hey, for this detection, we had 31 detections. Thanks. 31 detections. And then we'll say that would cost us a true negative rate. A true negative cost would cost us $100,000. So this would cost us $310,000. We can look at that and then break it down into our total cost for our logging as well. And then that allows us to get an idea of how much time we're spending as a SOC analyst in a year that's not getting worked on false positives. Remember, true positives have value, false positives do not. And so as a result of that, that's wasted time. So if we add all that together, fingers crossed this is all in this spreadsheet here. This old version. I don't think it is. It's not. So if we add all that together, I think we can just get rid of this guy for now and go back to the presentation. Cool. So if we add all that together, what we end up with is finding out that our SOC analysts are spending a lot of time, oftentimes somewhere in the ballpark of 75% of their time working on false positives. Do you feel good when you investigate something for 4 hours and then don't find shit? I don't. I feel terrible. Okay, it turns out I ruined my entire day. Now imagine that you have to work 100 cases a day, which is a lot, but it happens all the time. So when you work in those cases, one of the things I would tell people, like, hey, make sure when you're getting cases that you're merging cases together. When you're doing case management, don't let things pile up. Merge them together when they're there. That gives us accurate measurements. Also, when you're working on cases, if it's a false positive, go back and tune it. Say, why is this a false positive? How do I get this to be a true positive in the future? Well, because when we do the math, we end up finding out that our SOC analysts, we might have a staff of 25 people, but we could actually do all of our true positive work with 5. That's not a good reason to do that work. It makes it feel like shit when you're doing that. So what I would tell you there is make sure that you're calculating that metrics out. Do it every year. All this comes down to TLDR. Skip the whole talk. Just come to this. Is include your case metrics in your detection review cycle. So whenever you're doing detection reviews every year, seeing the fidelity of your EDR, NDR service, whatever that might be, bring in all your detections. Say, this is my true positive, false positive, benign positive rate. This is what it looks like when I start to do the math. And because of that, we start seeing, he's trying to give me the thing. Because of that, we start to see the math kind of shake out, but we can do things a little bit better. There would be some extra slides here, but I think this says Q&A. So I think I am done. Sorry for all the technical issues. I will have the slides published with all the correct stuff up there. Any questions in the last 2 minutes?
So when you're doing this internally, you can already have the practice of measuring true positives, benign positives, and false positives. But if you're doing this in a consulting capacity, when you're advising an organization, how do you factor in the time it would take for them to classify true positive, false positive, and benign positive?
It should be baked in. It should be part of you doing your everyday work.
Oh, I mean the initial upfront cost for moving to a system like this.
As part of your case management, all you got to do is add it in as a closure requirement. So when you're doing when you're doing your CMS, whenever you're doing that SOAR organization, you can say, hey, this needs to be as part of closure material. It needs to be true positive, false positive, or not positive. And unfortunately, you can do it in reverse. It was a good talk today about agentic AI. You can do reverse and classify things in reverse, but just understand it's going to be spotty. This is like a trend. So when you're looking at data, when you trend it, data is more useful when you look at it like in the past, right? So what you have to say, in the 6 months from now, what am I going to need? And I'm going to need this data. So you got to start today. Unfortunately, that's the easiest way to do it. Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, you talked about true positives and false positives.
Yeah.
But the question before that is, how do you decide what to alarm?
What do you alarm? Yeah, so on that spreadsheet, didn't do a very good job, but we have a detection genesis. So typically there's a reason you have a detection, whether that be compliance, an incident happened in the past, trends in industry, and that's how you get it up there. And then sharing the log cost as well is another whole issue. How do you say like, well, 4624 events are used in like 75 different detections. How do you justify the log cost among those? Well, you can divide it out, or you can look at it one at a time. I'm trying to go in order.
That was
your question, too.
Can I add a little?
Yes, sir, of course.
So I manage the stock with 700 retail locations.
Yes,
I
sir.
won't name the company. But when I first got there, they were getting all kinds of false alarms.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rule I made for them that they had to have at the right time was if it requires action on the part of the analyst, it's an alarm. If it doesn't require action, it's a law.
Yeah, that's it. Audit versus
A lot of
monitor.
stuff was being alarmed.
Yeah.
They have no business alarming.
100%.
What about tuning out false negatives? See people
Tuning out false negatives. So things that didn't
true, false negatives, yes.
things that didn't get caught, tuning
Yes.
them out,
Yes.
or
No.
tuning them in.
When you're trying to, but when people start creating logging that doesn't make noise,
Oh, I see.
or not understanding how to log,
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, so that happens
or
all the.
CMDB, lack of CMDB, and it just flies by and nobody knows what the hell it is.
Sometimes people just start logging things for no reason.
Noise.
Yeah, they just generate noise. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes we have compliance reasons. We just got to say, why am I logging this? And then also, you should have a data dictionary or a data catalog that says, hey, should I be logging this already, or do I already have this logged? Can I satisfy my compliance requirements without having to do this? It's nice to see you, Joe.
You too.
Go ahead. I think I'm out of time.
I have two questions for the sake of time.
Yeah.
How do you contextualize your tickets or your send? What would be your best practice in contextualizing when you're on call and reporting to the next SOX analyst that's going to be coming on when you're not able to finish that report or the incident?
Yeah. So most SOCs should have a triage layer. So your tier one coming in, and then you should have an incident handling or incident response layer. You're going to take that in. They need to do that ingestion. That layer, that tier one, what a lot of people call it, needs to be 24/7. It needs to have overlap so they can do shift handover and change without having to have somebody else come on. And you just say, hey, like you got to have staffing to do that work, and then just documenting all that work that comes with it.
And if you work with an MSSP, I work from a governance and GRS role point, but having to do this as a bonus part of my job. What's the best way to make sure that the MSSP is staying on top of it and seeing it all the way through? It's not just we log this, we reviewed this. I'm doing a quarterly review of the KPIs that you just talked about,
Yeah.
and I'm just checking the box. I want to make sure we're actually.
Unfortunately, it's going to be auditing and checking up on your MSSP at that point. You can bring in third parties to do it. You can have pen tests, do black box pen testing as well to see what's not getting caught, things that you know happened. That way you have signal that you know they didn't bring up on. And you can be like, hey, why didn't this get detected? Have a good relationship with your MSSP or MDR service. Hold them accountable. They're a SOC analyst, just like you have SOC analysts. So just say like, hey, yeah, but you're buying a service, right? You're saying like, yeah, I'm buying protection. That's all I have time for, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.